We are going to be having our first art lesson this week, and it's going to be on shading techniques. We're going to be doing a pumpkin drawing. We have two different vocabulary words. The first one is shade. Shade is the darker version of a color. So we'll be working with oranges and greens, and we'll be working with darker colors and lighter colors. The second vocabulary word that we're going to be working with is hue. And hue is the lighter version of a color. So if you think about orange, we think of the darker colors as the shade of an orange, and we think of the lighter colors as the hue of an orange. So the first thing you're going to need is a piece of white paper, a pencil, a black marker, and some crayons. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and draw an oval in the middle of your page, and it should be a taller oval. Then you're going to draw another oval shape, and you're going to connect it to the top and the bottom of your original oval. So you're not going to actually complete the oval, you're just going to make like a C shape to connect it to the top and the bottom. You're going to go over to the left side and you're going to do the exact same thing. Then you'll go back to the right and you'll add another C shape. And then finally you're going to go back to the left and you're going to add an additional C shape to that side. This is the main shape of your pumpkin that you're going to be drawing. You'll notice that at the bottom of the page I also added some little bumps in between, and at the top of the page I added some bumps in between, and that just shows more of a 3D looking version of a pumpkin. It's kind of like if you were looking at an actual pumpkin, you might be able to see some of the other parts of the pumpkin from your perspective and from your point of view as well. Then at the top I added a stem with my pencil. And a pumpkin stem, if you really look at it, it's very thick because it's actually part of the vine that you cut off, and the vine that the pumpkins grow on is a very thick vine. And then I also added a smaller piece of vine to my pumpkin just for a little extra creativity and decoration. Next, I'm going to take my black marker and I'm going to trace over all of my drawing. And this almost makes it look like a coloring page that we're going to color in, but it's going to help your art to stand out better when we're finished with it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start coloring, and I picked out 3 different colors of orange that I had in my box of crayons. If you just have one, that's fine as well. The darker colors that we use, you'll just press a little bit harder with your crayon, and then the lighter colors that we use, you're going to press not quite so hard with your crayon. So the first color I'm choosing is my darkest shade of orange. So remember that the orange color that we're talking about, which is that crayon in the middle, has shades and hues, and the hue is the lighter color of orange and the shade is the darker color of orange. So I'm going to pick up the shade first, and I'm going to press fairly hard but not hard enough to break the crayon, and I'm going to trace around all of the edges of the pumpkin. Then I'm going to pick the orange color, which is the middle shade or just the traditional orange color. And then I'm going to use that to color a little bit more widely around the edges of the pumpkin. Notice that when I'm coloring, I'm not just scribbling and I'm not coloring up and down and sideways and all over the place. All of my strokes or the movements that I make with my crayon are in one direction, and they're kind of going diagonally from the bottom left corner to the top right corner. And I keep coloring that way all the way around each of the edges, and I never change the direction of my stroke, just because that makes my art look a little bit more neat. Next, I'm going to pick the hue of orange, which is the lighter color, and I'm going to take that crayon and I'm going to lightly color in the middle of everything that I have left. I want you to notice that on the left side and the right side of my pumpkin, I didn't have enough space to color all the way around with that middle traditional orange color, so I just picked one side. I'm imagining that the sunlight is coming down from the top right corner, so the lighter color I'm putting on the right side of the pumpkin, and the darker color I'm putting on the left side of the pumpkin. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brown crayon and I am going to trace the stem of the pumpkin. I'm also going to give it a little bit of shade. And I only have one brown crayon, so I'm going to color darker when I'm going around the outside edges of the stem. And then when I want to color in the stem, I'm just going to push a little bit lighter so that you can see the difference in the shades and the hues of the brown. Now the next thing I need to do is add a background. And when I think about the ground outside underneath of a pumpkin, I know that the ground is not just brown and it's not just green either. There's many colors in the ground. So I'm going to pick a few crayons that represent the colors that I see in the ground, especially in the fall. In the fall, the grass is starting to die and things are turning a little bit more brown, so I will be using mostly brown, but I also picked a couple of greens because I know there's still some pieces of grass out there that look well alive. So I started with my dark green and I just made some lines in the ground. And this time my lines aren't as organized as they were when I was coloring the pumpkin. These lines are a little bit more all over the place because that's what grass looks like. If you look outside, you're not going to see perfectly straight grass everywhere. You're going to see it kind of squiggling and going back and forth and blowing in the wind. So you want to represent that with your green crayon. Now remember, you don't need to push too hard either. You'll still be able to see this green when you add in more colors later. Then I picked my lighter green and I went ahead and added some more grass in there because I know that grass is not just one color, there's multiple colors of grass. So I picked 2 colors today to represent that. And then with my brown crayon, I very lightly colored all the way around the bottom of the pumpkin to show the dirt where it's sitting. Notice that I did choose to color in one direction with the brown. And then to add a little bit of shade, I remember that my sunlight I'm imagining is coming from that top right corner. So that means the shade behind the pumpkin should be on the left lower corner. So I went ahead and pressed a little harder with my brown crayon and made a little bit of shade underneath of the pumpkin so that it looks like it's actually sitting on top of the ground. Finally, I decided I wanted to add a sky. And to me, fall weather always seems a little bit gloomy, and so I think of the colors gray and blue, and so I decided to pick these gray and blue crayons to represent that. I started with the gray and I just added some strokes diagonally across the sky. And then I took my blue crayon and I colored in the rest of the sky. Now remember, I'm not scribbling and I'm not coloring in all kinds of crazy directions because that wouldn't make my art look as neat. I decided to go in one direction and I followed the same direction as the strokes in my pumpkin. Finally, the last thing I need to do when I make a piece of art is sign it. So I usually use my initials when I sign my art, and then I always write the year. And so you can use your initials, you can write your name, you can write the entire date. It's completely up to you how you decide to sign your art. Some artists even hide their signatures in their art and hope that other people can find them. Hopefully you enjoyed drawing a pumpkin today, and now you know how to make a piece of art that looks a little more 3D. It looks like it's standing on the page. And I hope that you made something that you can be proud of today. Remember that when you do color, you don't have to scribble. When you push harder, you can make different shades of your color. And when you push lighter, you can make different hues of your color. And then your art looks a little bit more realistic. Now you can take this piece of art home, hang it on your fridge, hang it in your room, or give it to someone you love just to say thank you. And then make another one.